This is Gary Oldman's love letter to Britain, recorded at Heathrow during the filming of Flight BA 100. Gary was asked how he was made by Britain.
It had a huge influence, certainly on my career. It has given me Sid Vicious. It has given me Joe Alton. And it has given me a little chap called Winston. Not to mention all the other artists that have sort of influenced me all the way through either painting, photography, music. I mean, you use it all. You know, when you're preparing or putting together a character, there are so many sort of influences, you know, and you can take inspiration. It could be a painter, it could be a photographer. I tend to use photography and I use music quite often in the work. It's immediate and it's emotional and it's so sort of evocative, and you can hear a piece of music and it can transport you, take you back to a place instantaneously. You know, you hear a song or something and you remember where you were, what you were doing, how old you were, what you were feeling, what you were going through. You know, did you have a girlfriend? Were you breaking up? It's such a sensation in that respect, you know. Acting, you can't really find it through a book. It's a sensation rather than an intellectual process. Each thing you do has its own sort of set of hurdles that you have to kind of jump over. So I don't have a sort of method in that respect, but I have certainly used music in the past, and of course I've been very influenced by the British scene. I have two elder sisters, so when I was a young lad, 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, they were listening to the Beatles. I used to play the 45s at 33 and a third and slowed them down so I could learn the lyrics. Although at that age I did not know Everybody's Green, 'cause I'm the one who won your love. And I imagined people, green people, because I had no idea what Green with Envy was at 4. And I always thought it was The Girl with Scolitis Goes By, which I thought must have been some sort of psoriasis or something, you know what I mean? I imagined that it was a sort of skin disease, and then later realised it was the girl with kaleidoscope eyes. You don't have to go outside of Britain very far to have your choice of what music to listen to. I was very influenced by the blues, and I liked soul when I was, here we are doing a podcast for British Airways, and there's one going overhead right now. Oh, look, they're waving. I can see in the windows. I was a big Who fan. The Who, British blues bands, Jeff Beck, Stones, Keith Richards. I was looking at a lot of wartime photography, just British photography, even if it was just not famous photographers, even if it was just sort of reportage where people would go out and a photographer would be working for a newspaper and given an assignment, you know. So a lot of that was helped with when we were working on Darkest Hour. My resident researcher, my wife, Giselle, gathered a lot of material for me. And I remember playing on bomb sites growing up as a kid. And there'd be a row of terraced houses, and you would have 3 houses, and then there would be a gap where one was missing. And then you'd have another 3 or 4 houses, and then 3 were missing. A lot of the structures were rather like Hollywood sets. You know, it would be a brick facade with the empty windows and then held up by sort of wooden struts at the back. And so the war was very recent. Looking at that photography again takes you back to, you go, oh, I remember the atmosphere. I remember the fog. There's a smell in the air, you know, around the coal burning fires. You know, as an actor, you use, it's sense memory, I guess, is what they call it, you know, I guess the technical term for it. Yeah, I think I have been very fortunate I've had a terrific career. I've been incredibly lucky and very privileged in many respects. And you do become a world traveller. And that enables you to get a new appreciation of home. I've made my home in America for a long time now, just out of a happy captive, out of necessity, or, it wasn't something that was engineered, like I planned to do it. It was just it's my story, and it's the way it's worked out. But, I am a Brit. I've lived there for 20 odd years. I don't really feel I've lost the accent. So there's things that you love about home being Britain. There are things that you miss, but it's a great thing being able to travel to not only see the influence of Britain outside of Britain, but you have a new sort of appreciation for it when you come back. The thing I notice is just the food, this sort of renaissance that it's enjoying. A little bit, I feel, of what it must have felt like in the 60s. So that's a very striking thing. But Americans especially, there's still that joke about the food. It's fish and chips and what's that thing, that shepherd's pie thing that you eat in bangers and mash, although Giselle has a taste for the sausage and mash. But there's still that joke.
Yeah.
And now, some of the best chefs in the world are here. The food here is, amazing. It's glorious. Through working on Darkest Hour, a new appreciation, I think, a man that rallied, as he said, the people were the lion. He said, I was just fortunate enough to give them the roar. To face an enemy like that. It's a remarkable story of courage and patriotism and a sense of nationalism, of people coming together. I think the like of which you don't have today in the same way. My mother, who just passed, she was nearly 99. There's a certain type of woman. I don't know. They broke the mold. When I get very nostalgic, and we have many books, and I'll see a book on a shelf, and it could either be a play I was in or a book about the Royal Court. I don't know, an autobiography of Alec Guinness or something. You flick through the pages, and I do become. It's not a homesickness. It's not, but it is a sort of. I become. Yeah, there's some good times here, good memories, and you do miss London. I miss the humour, the irony of the British. That stiff upper lip, but there's something very sort of resilient, and you just keep sort of marching on. I remember vividly my father, he had contracts working abroad, but I remember 1966, I remember winning the World Cup and just the jubilance and my father watching it on a little black and white television. I do remember that, screaming at the top of his lungs, And then there are things like bonfire night. I remember very foggy, very cold bonfire night, and the taste of a sausage in a bun with fried onions, the smell of school dinners. On a Friday, you knew that you were going to have fish and chips. I remember a neighbour of ours who had bought Sergeant Pepper. I remember listening to that and not really getting it at all, because I'd been, She Loves You, yeah. And this new sort of direction that they were taking, and remember not really getting it. I was very lucky enough to fluke. I was on the fastest transatlantic crossing on Concorde, British Airways Concorde, 2 hours and 53 minutes from New York to London. I think it's in the record book. It was just a fluke, flying at Mach 2 and a tailwind. But you would always get you would always get those Captain Montgomery, and there was Captain Royce, and you always felt sort of something about that voice coming on, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Royce." And they would always say that the Concorde would, it's a little, you'll notice, it's a little sportier than other aircraft at the takeoff. So there's something, I don't know, you feel like you're in good hands. British Airways.